Welcome back to the second section of your CTJ discussion. I'd like to move on to the second learning intention now, that is developing a common understanding of how these assessment tools are linked to the Australian curriculum. The core question that I'd like us to inquire into this afternoon is how do the assessment tools align with A2E reporting? A common question that's been asked of reading coaches over the past 2 terms is, can we simply use our PM data and our probe data to provide students with an A2E? In this second section, I would like to take some time to explore this question so that you are all able to answer this question very definitively. There will be a bit of pausing during this, so someone will need to push the pause button on the video while you complete a series of activities that will assist you to formulate the answer to this very key question. First of all, let's just have a brief revisit of each of the sections of the Australian curriculum. We have our year level description or descriptor, we have an achievement standard, and of course we have the content descriptors in the 3 strands: language, literature, and literacy. The more familiar you are with those 3 strands and what they actually mean, the easier it is to navigate yourself around what seems often like an insurmountable number of CDs within the English curriculum. In the reading training, we've been asking you to use all 3 sections of your English curriculum directly to relate to your year level. The year level descriptor, which explains the interrelatedness of the 3 strands. Interestingly enough, the first paragraph across all levels prep to 6 is pretty much the same. It's just telling you and providing you with some core base information around those 3 strands and how they must be interrelated, they can't be separated. Just a revisit of the 3 strands. The language strand is the skills of the English language. These skills need to be applied to both reading, writing, viewing and speaking and listening. The literature strand is the one that helps students to understand, appreciate, respond to, analyse and create literary text. Remember, literature is not just narrative. The literacy strand is about expanding the repertoire of English usage so that students apply those skills from language across all areas of literacy. The last 3 paragraphs in your year level descriptor provide information around the complexity and variety of text that students should be viewing, reading and listening to, and the types of text they should be creating. A common problem we have is we see the word create and we presume it means writing. Creating also means developing and producing spoken, written and multimodal text in print or digital form. Take a minute now to read over your year level descriptor and to tick off the types of text that you have engaged with in your class this year. So you're reading through those paragraphs and going, yes, we have engaged with this type of text either by viewing, by listening, by speaking, by reading, or by writing. Briefly pause the video if need be. Okay, let's move on to the content descriptors. Just a quick review. The language strand runs right across the top here. The literature strand runs through the middle and the literacy strand is down the bottom. The green is reading, the red is writing, the blue is usually related to oral language, listening and speaking. Okay. Again, I can't reinforce too often that the more you know your CDs, the more you're able to see the links and connections between each CD and the actual list you have to cover. Okay, we've already talked briefly about the year level descriptor. Let's move on to the achievement standard and have a look at that in more detail. What I would like you to do with your achievement standard is actually closely analyse it to find out what aspects of, start that sentence again, what we're going to do with each year level achievement standard is to analyse them and identify what parts of the achievement standard are covered within a reading assessment tool like PM or Probe. So when we have a look at this Year 2, the opening paragraph from the receptive mode, by the end of Year 2, students understand how similar texts share characteristics by identifying text structures and language features used to describe characters and events or to communicate factual information. We can actually see that the running record tools that we're using for decoding and comprehension do not help us to work out if students can do what's written within this paragraph of the achievement standard. Let's move on to the second paragraph in the achievement standard. Okay, when we move on to this paragraph, we can identify some sections that are related to the reading assessment task. Students read texts that contain varied sentence structures, some unfamiliar vocab, and a significant number of high-frequency sight words. And I'm actually not going to highlight the images because not many of the Probe definitely doesn't contain images, and the PM ones are quite limited. So you can see that actually the first part of that sentence is assessed within the reading assessment tool. When we have a look at the next part, they monitor meaning and self-correct using knowledge of phonics, syntactics, punctuation, semantics, and context. That's a definite. The phonics is your visual clues, the syntactics and semantics and context are your meaning and structure cues. Students use the knowledge of a wide variety of letter-sound relationships to read words of one or more syllables with fluency. That also is covered within the running records. They identify literal and implied meaning. That's part of the questioning within each of the assessment tools. I'm not going to underline main ideas and supporting details because we're not sure about that. The section students make connections between texts by comparing content. That doesn't happen using the assessment tool because they're not being asked to make connections between texts. And then the last two sentences are about listening, so that also is not covered in the PM and the Probe. So here you can see that some of the achievement standard for receptive mode is covered through the assessment tools, but definitely not all, especially in relation to the first paragraph. Now this was Year 2. What I would like you to do now is to have a look at your own achievement standard for your year level and identify which parts of that achievement standard are being covered within the assessment tool that we've been looking at. So first of all, go to your year level and highlight the sections of the achievement standard that are being assessed within Probe or PM. And then after you've done that, I'm going to get you in your groups to actually compare different year levels and discuss observations. What do you actually notice about from each one year level to the other, how much is highlighted, how much isn't highlighted. In other words, how much is being assessed by the tools. Pause the screencast now so that you can do that. Now we need to move on to the curriculum on a page, the actual CDs, and find out which specific CDs correlate to the sections of the achievement standard that you've just highlighted. I can very quickly, go to a couple of sections that will form, I know will be within the reading. If you look here, that reading processes one will be part of it, as will the comprehension strategies one. Oh, sorry about those lines. I'm not going to try that again, but as you can see, those two CDs, reading processes and comprehension strategies, are in the same place on everyone's curriculum on a page document, and those ones are clearly identified within, clearly assessed within the assessment tools. If we have a little bit of a closer look, I actually now want to identify that only some parts of a CD are are assessed within the tool. So here is this another Year 2 one. When I read it, read an increasing range of different types of text. Well, in fact, if you're on to probe in Year 2, we're actually only using factual text, so we can't tell if students are reading an increasing range of different texts. However, we can tell if they are combining contextual, semantic, grammatical, and phonic knowledge using text processes as strategies, such as monitoring, meaning, predicting, confirming, and rereading. So that one's covered pretty well, as long as you ensure that students are reading a variety of text. When you have a look at this one, we are identifying if they're using comprehension strategies to build literal and implied meaning. However, this second part, where it talks about analysing text by drawing on a growing knowledge of context, language, and visual features, we can't tell from a PM or a probe if students are actually analysing the text in depth. They're analysing it because we're asking them to a little bit through the questions, but they need to be able to begin to independently analyse text, which includes the language and visual features, print and multimodal text. And of course, there's no multimodal text within either probe or PM. So what we're going to do now is actually explore your CDs and try to identify those ones that are being assessed within while you're using your probe and PM tool. But be very careful that you read and analyse the whole content descriptor and only highlight those sections that are being assessed. Remember, it may not be the whole one. Okay, if you can pause now and do that. You will have found a variety of CDs that are being assessed. What you did need to look for carefully is with the word read in some of the CDs, and that's a clear indication that that one is related to reading. Your alphabet and phonics knowledge, it's probably like in Year 3, it's 3.14, talks about students fluently reading multisyllabic words, so that will be assessed within the reading tools, along with like 3.13, which is recognise and know how to write most high frequency words. No, it won't, because that's writing. We have in here, we need students to read those, not write them. Okay, let's move on. This was our question that we started with. How do the assessment tools align with A to E reporting? What else do I need for reporting on student progress in reading? This is actually where this screencast is going to conclude. There are a series of questions for your discussion group to try to come up with an answer to that question, that main question, how do the assessment tools align with A to E reporting? Following that, your group can then go on to actual CTJ activities. Thank you very much for working with us today and participating in CTJ Day. I really would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for the enthusiasm and the positivity in which you have launched into the reading strategy, even teachers in Year 5 and 6 in some schools. So that is to your huge credit across the system. We are really impressed with the way, the collective efficacy that I think is now being established across the diocese. So thank you and enjoy the rest of CTJ.